What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Silicon Tech. Now today we have part 2 of the MacBook Pro 14-inch review, and it's going to be all about the software macOS Monterey. Now last week we looked at the hardware of the MacBook Pro and the new design, all of the new hardware features that came in the machine. So if you haven't looked at that video, make sure you go back and take a look. But with macOS Monterey, you may think, it's macOS. It's pretty much on every Mac that is able to support it, but there are some very small but still important differences, specifically on the new MacBooks. So let's get into it. The interface. Now, I didn't talk about this last week on the hardware, which is a surprise because when the new design was first released, the thing that caught a lot of people's attention was the notch. So the notch, just like the notch on the iPhones, houses the camera in the MacBook Pro. So that wasn't a good enough excuse for a lot of people. They still hated it when they first saw it, but I'm here to assure you that that notch doesn't get in the way of the interface with the screen, and is actually very important and helpful to me, and I like it because the information that it has around it, some things like the battery life, the volume controls, the brightness controls, as well as housing control center on the right side of the notch. Now, when you want to go to the left side, especially if you're working in different programs and apps, you'll have that file drop down menu, that options or settings menu, and you need that to control these programs. So you may say, of course, you need those things. That's all fine. But when you're looking at media, specifically movies, videos, and let's just say you're editing video or editing pictures, will that notch get in the way? And the answer is simply no. When you're doing things like that, the notch just goes away. The notch is black, and the area around it will just also get black and match, especially with that XDR liquid retina display and mini LED. Those blacks are very, very true for this display. So everything is uniform when you need the notch to go away. And when you need to call upon it again, if you're in these programs or if you're looking at a movie, you just simply scroll up to where it is, and all of that battery information, volume information, and everything pops right up. So the sky isn't falling, the notch isn't ruining this computer, and like I said, I like it. It's grown on a lot of other people, and it's here to stay. So what about the area that's not the notch? Now, especially with the 14-inch, that's a new size to these MacBook Pros. So how is that area utilized with the interface? And is used very well. Of course, with macOS and pretty much any other operating system, you have the windows, so you're able to have as many windows open as your RAM allows or your mind can fathom. And you have the desktop where you're able to save different files there. So that can be as organized or as unorganized as you want it to be. Of course, I have chosen unorganized, but with that desktop and just saving things to it, with my workflow, it's better to just have that, and I'm able to drag and drop from the desktop to different programs, any media files that I may need. Now, with these MacBook Pros or pretty much any M1 Mac, they try to be as much of an iPhone or iPad as they can be. And that's even going into the app screen. Now, there's an app screen available on macOS that pretty much shows the apps how they're going to show on the iPhone or iPad. You're able to scroll through them, and I like it because I'm able to just go here and I don't have to search for my apps. And using hot corners, I'm able to do this even easier. Now, hot corners, I didn't know about this until obviously I started using macOS. Hot corners is pretty much you're able to designate the four corners of your screen with a certain command or a certain navigation. So in the upper left corner of my screen, when I bring the cursor there, I bring it to the app screen. If I go to the lower left corner of the screen, then that's going to give me the multitasking view. And if I do the right lower corner, that's going to bring me to the lock screen. So pretty much three things that I use a lot. I don't even have to think about it. I just drag it there. Now, speaking of that multitasking screen, macOS does do a very good job with multitasking. So if you go to the screen, you'll have your desktop tab open. You can do another desktop, and you can have tabs of programs that you're running. So if you're running Final Cut Pro, Microsoft Word, things like that, those programs will be pinned up to the top. And on the desktop, if you have things open like maybe maps, messages, just pretty much any app, you'll be able to find that there as well and click on it and go back to where it is on the desktop. So the multitasking is good, but one thing that is mind-boggling that is missing is split screen. I had no idea macOS didn't have split screen. So when I first got on it, I tried to do split screen to no avail and started researching, and it doesn't have it. Now it does have apps that you can purchase or download that kind of imitates that split screen, and people use that. But when you're coming from the iPad and Windows machine, you get pretty used to that split screen, or at least I had. Because that's one of my favorite things about using the iPad is the split screen, and one of the key features that I enjoy with Windows. So to not have this on macOS by default was a pretty big hit to me. But aside from that, the interface is very, very good. Now, going into the capabilities of macOS Monterey, there's a lot that this system can do, especially because it's trying to act like two systems. Now with the M1 integration in all of the new Mac products, the Macs can run a lot of the apps that the iPhone and the iPad can run. Not all of them, because I've searched for a lot of apps that I wanted to try on the MacBook, and they're not available. So it's up to the developer to port those to the MacBooks or just Macs in general. And the ones that are ported to them, if they are touch heavy apps, they can be pretty weird, because of course the MacBooks don't have touch screens, and the trackpad, although good, can only do so much to imitate that touch screen. But the apps that do get it right, so that are less touch intensive, run pretty well on the Macs. So that's a good thing if you have some apps that you want to take advantage of that larger screen being on the MacBooks. And then you have the apps that are exclusive to macOS, such as Final Cut Pro, Logic, and a lot of third-party video and photo editing apps as well. So of course you have to come here to get those. Some may argue that these apps are better, are more professional, and people prefer how they perform in that laptop form factor, and have pretty much become accustomed to using them there. So that's a plus, and that was one of the main factors that that drew me into macOS. But some of the other factors that drew me into macOS too was a proper file management system. Now, some people still don't like the file management system on macOS or just Macs in general, but coming from the iPad, it is definitely a very, very big improvement for me. So not only the file management, but being able to format things. On the iPad, you can't format external SSDs and the SD cards. So being able to do that was a very big plus, and that's actually one of the first things that I did with my MacBook was recover an SD card. So I went on a trip, I had a lot of good pictures of some different locations, and card basically got corrupted, wiped, deleted, whatever. And I knew that I can restore these things with some software and to bring those pictures back, but on my iPad I couldn't do that. So first thing I did was download it on my MacBook and got that taken care of. So I was very happy to have those pictures back. So as you can see, for the most part, macOS is much more capable than what you're gonna find on your iPhone or iPad. But how reliable is it? Now, the reliability of macOS was a concern to me because the bigger the operating system, the bigger the risk you have of everything kind of crashing and burning. But well, this operating system is well optimized. I haven't had many problems with it. Everything runs very, very smooth for the most part. And with the most part, the most important thing, or the main reason that I purchased the MacBook Pro to video edit, has been showing problems there. Now, I'm not video editing like major productions with this computer. I'm still using 1080p video, have a couple of layers of that, adding my B-roll, couple of music tracks, no major effects, and I'm still getting this beach ball. Now, it doesn't happen too often, or when it does happen, it's not very long that it has to work things out. But the fact that I'm getting it at all is still very troublesome or just annoying to me, because I've heard many things for many months on not only the new MacBook Pros and the M1 Pro chip, M1 Max chip, or with me just having the M1 Pro chip, but also on the base M1 chips and how they run with no problem, especially if you're not throwing like fireballs at it. And I don't think I'm doing that, so to get these beach balls is very puzzling to me. But aside from that, just the basic operations of the system and flow of it, it performs very, very well. Now, speaking of those chips, that performance of the system is coming from those M1 chips. So from the M1 to the M1 Pro to the M1 Max, and the other M1 chips that Apple has released and are yet to release, that's all brought to you by these chips. And I mentioned this on the last video with the hardware too. Some of the hardware features are brought to you by the chip. So this chip is pretty much wrapping and bringing everything together in union. And on my machine, I have the base 16 gigabytes of RAM. And like I said, aside from the Final Cut Pro issues here and there, it's holding up pretty well. Now, not using it in an intense manner, I'm getting by on 16 gigabytes with the system. Can you get by on 16 gigabytes? I don't know. It's dependent on what you're doing. But with that unified memory and the chip as a whole, it is running this system very well, running these apps very well, and it's only going to get better in the future. So just like with iOS and iPadOS and how they seem to get updates at least every couple of weeks, that is going to be the same with macOS Monterey until it turns to the next big version of that software. So for me being a first time Mac user and using this system for a couple of months, it's very friendly, very easy to use, tons and tons of customizations on it, so you can definitely make it yours. So it's good. That's all I have to say about it until I have more experience with it. Thanks for watching the video. As always, if you haven't checked out the hardware review of the MacBook Pro Part 1, go and check that out. Leave any questions, tips, whatever you want to tell me in the comments about the video. Definitely open to hearing all of that. Thanks for watching the video, and as always, be easy and peace.